Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I am going to address the question of whether or not black people have a genetic difference than others when it comes to building muscle and potential of having a great physique. Okay, so this is something that I think I am qualified to answer specifically because since young, I have been put in situations where basically all other variables were removed, like being in jail, juvenile detention, jails, prisons, and everyone was on a level playing field. There were no ways of cheating, no ways of supplementing that others weren't aware of. Everybody worked out with the same facility, same equipment, same machines, and everybody ate the same foods for the most part. All right. Now, because of that, I was able to observe actual differences in body types and in genetics when it comes to black people versus white people. Okay? And what I have found and what I have observed, my conclusion is that the answer is yes. Black people do have a genetic advantage when it comes to not only building muscle, but also athletic ability. Now, this doesn't apply to every single black person, okay, in America. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about black people in America, not worldwide, all right? And the reason why I focus on in America goes to the logic that I have come up with as far as why they have this advantage. And a lot of it, most of it, if not all, goes back to slavery, okay? Black people for hundreds of years were captive. And when and during the times of their captivity, they were selectively bred, okay, to be the strongest, the biggest, the most well-built. And if you don't understand what that means, I'll make it very simple for you. Okay, the slave owners had an objective to derive from each slave the most amount of actual physical labor possible. And in order to do that, it's obvious that they would want to get the biggest and strongest slaves. When they were buying these slaves, they didn't want to always pay top dollar to just get the one that was already the biggest and strongest. But rather, once they had their own group of slaves that they owned, they would selectively breed them. So they would take this one who's the biggest and strongest and produces the most physical labor and mate him, the male, with the female who had the same qualities, the biggest, the tallest, the thickest bone structure, the hardest worker, and they would breed them selectively. And because of that happening for hundreds of years, from generation to generation, I believe that black people in America today who do see those genetic advantages do so as a result of that selective breeding. Okay? So that gives you the answer to why they have these advantages. Now I'm going to address the actual differences, genetically speaking, when it comes to building muscle. All right? So the first thing I noticed is that some black guys that were in jail with me, they, without working out, they already had a nice build, all right? They already had round muscle bellies. They already had very low body fat percentages. They already had narrow waists with broad shoulders, and they had this without training, all right? It wasn't something that they had to work to achieve. And so that's the one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is for those that I worked out with, okay, we worked out the same. We ate the same. We slept the same. We lived in the same housing unit. Sometimes they were my cellmates. We lived in the same cell. And we literally were stuck together all the time. And I noticed that a lot of the times, more often than not, the workout partners who were black would benefit and would progress much faster than the rest of us. Okay? I'm talking about like serious difference in how fast they progressed. It would be the equivalent of one guy training natural and his workout partner being on hard steroids, and a couple months pass and you look at the differences in the body types and you'll notice there's a huge difference. I'm not talking a small difference. So what that tells me is not only were they starting off from a better start point, but in addition, their bodies reacted in a way that would allow them to progress at a much faster rate and to grow their muscles, utilizing the same amount of calories that I was eating, but in a better way, meaning my body would disperse those nutrients into muscle and also into fat, and their bodies seem to not transfer any of that food intake and caloric intake into body fat, but rather it just all went into the muscle. So again, guys, this is not something that I'm saying is a bad thing. This is a fucking excellent thing for black people. You know, I wish that I had that issue, that genetic advantage, because that's exactly what it is. It is a genetic advantage. They have the ability, and again, it's not all of them. This applies to most, probably, males specifically. And it's a crazy thing, guys, but I've seen it with my own eyes. I've observed it with my own eyes. There's a difference in not only the things I've said, but also in the muscle insertion. How their muscles connect to the bone of the body differs. Like, my body type is very poor for bodybuilding because, generally speaking, I have a wide waist. I have smooth muscle insertions, meaning I don't have rounded muscles. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though I work out, you don't see tremendous difference in one muscle group to the next between biceps and triceps, etc. Whereas to the black people, the kind that I'm talking about, it's very clear that there's a difference in how their muscles look and react to training. All right, and the last point I'm going to talk about is how this applies to physical potential in sports and athletics. So it stands to reason, logically, that if they have this advantage, because of the reasons that I said that go back to slavery, it also will manifest itself on the field in any type athletic competition, and it does. And what I mean by that is black people are better than white people and others on average when it comes to physical capability in sports. They run faster, they jump higher, there's just clear differences. And it's not to say that one is better than the other. It's not, because as they had genetic benefit as a result of that selective breeding, there were also negatives that came as a result of that as well. So there's pluses and negatives to everything, pros and cons to everyone. All right? So as an example, Asian people, I believe, are genetically predisposed to have a higher intellect than the average, meaning the rest of the world collectively together. So it's just one of those things, guys. But I wanted to touch on this video because a lot of people are just afraid to talk. I don't know why. People are afraid to touch on sensitive topics. To me, this is nothing. This is not a serious issue, but it's something that is real. It's real and it's observable. And you can go to the gym and you can see it for yourself. The white guys work out just as hard, if not harder sometimes, and they don't get the physiques that the black guys get. So I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on this. Please share your comments. I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.